What's up, YouTube? Brian Van Dyne here for those of you that are new to the channel. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about a couple of the things that I would consider most important to have when you start your business versus some things that you could probably do without and maybe wait on. Okay, so one of the things that comes to mind when I think of things that I could not live without when I started my dump truck business, and that would be probably some sort of financial software, such as QuickBooks, QuickBooks Online. There's a whole bunch of other ones. Honestly, if I were to start my business again, I would just start with QuickBooks Online. When I started out, I did not like the idea of monthly fees at all. I was totally against it. I'll pay the full amount up front and never have to pay for it again. That was kind of my thought process. And so I bought QuickBooks for desktop. The one problem with that is like after a year or two, you know, your tax lady is going to be like, oh, I can't use this because it's too old of a format. It's got to be. So then you end up buying the new QuickBooks every 2 or 3 years. So you basically are still doing a monthly subscription. You're just paying more up front for it. So I switched to QuickBooks Online, and I really like that because it's linked to the bank account. So every time I make a transaction with the business card, it automatically gets logged into the QuickBooks for my profit and loss, and it's a lot easier for me to keep track of my profit, my expenses, you know, all intents and purposes for taxes and that type of stuff. Invoicing, got to be able to invoice, right, your customers. And another reason I would recommend QuickBooks Online is because your invoices, I do all digital invoices. I don't do paper invoices. It just looks so much more professional. It's so much faster, so much easier, less paper, less headache, going to the post office, your mail's lost, it's late, this, that, and the other. You know, oh, the check's in the mail, bull crap that they always tell you, when realistically they haven't even sent the check out. I'd rather just do it all digital because it's a lot faster. They can't bull crap you. You know, they can't tell you one thing and do another. So I would really recommend that's something you need right out the gate, personally, in my opinion. Obviously, you know, you could probably do without it for a month or two while you're just getting your feet off, you know, just getting your feet wet in the business. You could probably use paper invoices for the first month or two till you make some money. Something else that obviously you got to have your insurance. That is a mandatory, you know, requirement. You got to have that right out the gate. But there are people that do it without insurance, but I do not recommend that, and that's against the law. You know, you don't really need all the tools, guys. That's one of the misconceptions a lot of people think is you need all these tools to run a dump truck business. You really don't need that many tools, and you don't need expensive tools, right? And one of the way I've ran my business is I don't buy a tool until I need it, right? A lot of guys, like, I'm just going to throw Justin out there just because a lot of you guys know about him already. When he started his business, he went out and bought, you know, easily $100,000 in Snap-on tools. You do not need $100,000 in Snap-on tools. You know, I touch my tools probably once a month, maybe, right? The older the truck, the more you're going to use your tools, right? Obviously, you might use your tools once a week, you know, but you don't need all these fancy tools. You can get work done It might be slower. You can get work done cheaper on your truck by using old techniques, like just using a regular ratchet and a breaker bar, a pipe over it. That's going to work just as good as an impact wrench. It's just going to take you a lot longer and require more time and more energy to do it, but it's cheaper. So that's one thing I would say. You don't need $100,000 in tools. You really only need under $1,000 in tools. If you had $1,000, you could easily go to Harbor Freight and buy all the tools that you would really need on a daily basis. Really, all you need is a set of sockets, a set of deep sockets, a couple crescent wrenches, a couple open-end wrenches, and that's really all you really need, right? A lot of the other work that requires impact wrenches, impact sockets, all those specialty tools, you really don't need that stuff because you're not using it on a daily basis. So, if you plan on buying more trucks in the future, then it makes sense to buy the tools because you're going to use them again. It's just a matter of time. So that way your investment pays off. When you're first starting out though, like I didn't have a lot of money at all. So what I did was I just took the route that cost no money and cost a lot of time. Let me give you an example of that. When I first was getting my dump truck ready, I bought 8 tires off the internet, drive tires, and I bought 8 tires. It was like, I don't know, it was like $2,000, $2,200 for 8 tires, drive tires. Now, if I would have went into any of the tire shops, they would have charged me easily $3,500 to mount them and balance them or do all that other stuff. If they were going to, it would have been easily $3,500 to $4,000. These days, it's closer to $5,000, depending on which shop you go to in Washington State. That is. And so I went the super cheap route, but I also struggled because I had to manually put those tires on and I didn't have all the proper tools. So I had to use these, risque techniques, like using starting fluid to set the bead on a tire, So you can do things the cheap way. It just takes a lot longer sometimes. And it's a good way for you to get started. So I got a comment on one of my videos. The guy was like, hey, I don't have enough money for a dump truck yet, but I'm thinking about buying a dump trailer and then making some money with that and then being able to buy a dump truck. Kind of working his way up. I said, that's a great idea. Just remember what you're buying that trailer for, right? Because a lot of people, they say, oh, I want to go into this. I want to do dump trucking. And then they buy a dump trailer, and it's a completely different business is really what it ends up being. It's a completely different business. Dump trucks versus dump trailers, completely different business. Number one, dump trailers, if you're hauling with your pickup, are going to be very small loads. You're only hauling 5 yards tops. 1 to 2, 3, 4 yards tops. And so you have different clientele, right? You have different expenses. And a lot of times what people end up doing is they buy a dump trailer and then they don't hustle. They just expect the work to just show up. And that's not how it happens. You actually have to hustle, right? You have to constantly advertise yourself. And I would say dump trailers, they're a dime a dozen. Everybody has one, just about. You can buy a brand new one for $8,000. So they're really not that expensive. You can buy a used one for $4,000. So you can definitely use that to get your foot in the door, start learning the product names, the product types, what they're used for. That it's definitely a good first step, and it's a low investment startup, right? So you're not going out and spending $50,000 on a dump truck, to get in the industry. You're getting in the same industry, but for way less overhead. So I think that's a good option. Just remember that you have a purpose with buying a dump trailer. Your purpose is not to run a dump trailer business. It's to eventually get a dump truck so you can roll with the big dogs. I mean, you can run a very successful dump trailer business. I'm sure there are people out there that do it. But if you want to move volume and weight, that's not efficient. That's why you're getting a dump truck, right? Dump trailers are convenient because you can get them into tight spaces. They're convenient because you don't use as much fuel. But they're still a pain. You have a battery that usually they're battery operated, battery hydraulic. Battery's going to go dead on you all the time. So you're going to be buying batteries. You're going to have to charge the battery. Trailer tires, and then you got to do oil changes on your pickup truck. There's a lot of maintenance that people don't really foresee because they don't do a whole lot of maintenance on their vehicles. But then when you start running it every day, then you have a lot of maintenance that adds up. Start putting miles on your pickup. And then eventually you're going to get to a point where you start doing jobs where you end up working 12 hours, because you can't hold the volume. And then that's when you make the jump to buy a dump truck because you're like, okay, I got enough of these jobs that it's taking too long to do this work. I can do the work and I can do double the work in half the time and make double the money. So it justifies, getting the dump truck. Okay, one thing, you don't need right out the jump is a fuel card. I ran my business for a year and a half, probably 2 years, before I even got a fuel card. Right? I just filled up at the regular gas stations. I did side jobs for cash, paid cash, for the fuel, got the discount, you buy your groceries on the Fred Meyer card, you get a discount, you get your fuel at the Fred Meyers. A lot of people are looking at you like, what the heck's this guy doing in here with this for, But it's a business opportunity because you get a lot more customers asking you for a business card at an Arco gas station and a Safeway gas station, a Fred Meyer's gas station, versus if you go to a commercial fueling. Nobody's going to ever ask you for a business card at a commercial fueling station. Number one, because they're already doing commercial fueling. They probably already have their customers. They're just in there and out. If you're going to a non-commercial fueling site like Arco or flying, I suppose you could use truck stops too. More people are likely to come up to you and say, hey man, you deliver rock out here, or you deliver this. It's happened to me a lot more at regular gas stations than at commercial fueling sites. So I would just say that's one thing. You don't need a fuel card right out the gate. However, it is nice to have a fuel card because they don't charge you right when you buy the fuel. They can charge you, depending on how you work it out with them. Some of them charge you net 30, which means after you buy the fuel, 30 days later, they bill you. Or some of them charge you a week later, 2 weeks. Some of them only bill once a month on a certain day. A lot of them are electronic. So that's one thing that, you don't need right out the jump. It is nice. And depending on who you get your card from, you can get better fuel prices. But at the end of the day, 2 cents difference in gallons, it's not going to make or break your business. I hate to break it to you. It's not going to make or break your business. Obviously, you want the cheapest price you can get every time because it adds up over time, but that's not going to make or break your business. One thing you don't need right out the jump is a whole bunch of accounts everywhere. You don't need accounts with, dealers, because you're probably not going to buy parts from them every single week or every month. I've been in business for 5 years, going on my 6th year, and I go to O'Reilly's all the time. O'Reilly Auto Parts, that's one of the biggest auto retailers here. I have an account with them. I like them because, like over Napa or, any of the other auto parts stores, AutoZone, they will deliver to me without charge. So, if I'm working on something, I can call them up. Hey, I need 5 gallons of this oil. Can you bring it out to me? Yep, it's on its way. Or it'll get there by 5 p.m. Saves me a trip from going all the way into town. It saves me an hour. Right? And so I would recommend getting an account with like your local parts store. That's nice to have because, especially if they do deliveries. If they don't do deliveries, then there's really no point in getting an account with them because you're not getting any benefit. Another thing, I really like Amazon. I know everybody hates Amazon. I love Amazon. I will be using Amazon until they come up with the next coolest thing. Because Amazon allows you, it's like Amazon or eBay or any online retailer for that matter. I have Amazon Prime because you get better shipping, faster shipping usually, and you don't have to pay for it every single time. You just pay once a year, the membership fee, and then you get the 2-day shipping or whatever a lot faster. Another thing I would recommend, something that if I could go back on my business and do things a little differently, the one thing I think I might do a little different is I would have waited longer to buy equipment, and I would just built up more capital. Just focused more on dump trucking and less on getting other equipment. Don't get me wrong, having other equipment is very nice, but it takes a lot of your growing capital. Like my main focus in business is dump trucking, right? And if I go out and spend $20,000 on an excavator, that's $20,000 I don't have to spend on another dump truck, which is how I make my primary source of money, right? So diversifying is good, but at the same time, it doesn't help you with your primary objective. So just something to keep in mind. You're going to need a CB like yesterday. If you get a dump truck, you got to have a CB. It's got to work. That's something that you have to have immediately when you start your business. One of the things a lot of people stress about is, I got to get my door painted, or I got to have my name on the door or whatever. Dude, I went a year and a half with only having one door painted because my buddy was painting them, right? So it's not like everybody knew the orange truck was mine. They didn't have to see the name on the door to know it was my truck. You do have to have your DOT numbers and that stuff on the door immediately, but you can get away with not putting your name on the door for a while. It's not one of those things that has to be done ASAP. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. A couple things to think about. You know, about what you could really wait on and what you could just get now, and you know you're going to be able to use it right away. I would highly recommend getting some sort of headset. You don't need it, but trust me, when you first start your business, you're going to be making a lot of phone calls, and you're going to be sending a lot of text messages and a lot of emails. I mean, and the more you do your business, the more it happens. So you're going to need some way of hands-free communication because communicating while driving is very dangerous, and it's just one of those things. You have to do it if you're running a business. Nobody's going to call your customers for you unless they're charging you, and that don't work. That's not the way businesses are ran. So that's just something I would recommend. And then, like, one thing I will say, my old dump truck, when I first bought it, the seat was so worn out and clapped out. I was literally sitting on a board just about. I should have upgraded that seat. One of the first things I should have did was upgrade that seat, because it would have allowed me to be more comfortable, to work longer hours, and that right there would have paid for itself immediately, because, you know, when you're wearing yourself out like that, you quit earlier. You don't want to work as long, and that means you don't make as much money. So optimize yourself to work the longest amount of hours, and, you know, get yourself one of these lunch boxes so you can have some nice warm food. Let me show you this lunch box. You guys got to get one of these. It's like a little hot box. Plug it into the cigarette lighter and heat up some burritos or something. You know, some Hot Pockets. That way you're not stopping at the gas station every, 20 times a day. So, anyways, guys, I'll catch you on the next one. Don't forget to pound that like button, pound that subscribe button, and as always, share this on your social media site of preference. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Vero, True Social, MeWe, whatever the site you use. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.